Hello everyone. I decided to do a video on the installation of a fuel pin and governor spring on my 1989 Dodge Cummins first gen 12 valve. I don't feel there's enough videos of this online. There's a couple, and you can figure it out pretty easily from those videos, but I decided to do another one, just a different view, different engine, different lighting. So anyway, to get up to this point, I took off the AFC top and I took out the diaphragm and the spring, which is over here. Let's see, where's the pump top? Oh, here it is. There's the pump top. Right there is the it's called the smoke screw. If you take off that cap, you can turn that screw in or out, and it adjusts how much zero boost fuel you get. So if you turn that screw in this way, it gets more zero boost fuel and makes more smoke, which pisses off other drivers and makes you look like an asshole. And a lot of diesel guys seem to like smoke. But if you back it off, you get less zero boost fuel, less smoke, and it'll help you spool up your turbo faster, from what I hear. Anyway, so there's that. Here's the diaphragm and fuel pin. This is a stock fuel cone, and you can see here's the witness mark from where the fuel pin rode on the fuel cone. And there's the spring and the throttle lever and some other miscellaneous parts and tools over here. About the throttle lever, that went on the throttle shaft right here, and you'll see there is a slot on that throttle shaft, and there are a number of marks on this throttle lever. Make sure to align the slot up with the appropriate mark. Make a note of it and put it back the same way. I think with all these trucks it gets aligned on the second mark. It was on mine anyway. And some other stuff that I took apart to get to this point. There's this fuel line here. I actually don't really know what this is. I think that might be the fuel supply line. I think it comes from the top of the filter housing. I had to remove this because I couldn't pull the the throttle lever off because the line was in the way. And I had to remove the banjo bolt that held this boost line onto the top of the AFC housing. This line just goes to your intake manifold, and it measures boost pressure and delivers that boost pressure to the top of the diaphragm that sits in here and pushes up and down accordingly depending on how much boost there is. And the more boost there is, the more it pushes down the diaphragm, and the further down into that hole the fuel pin goes, and that fuel pin that rides on the fuel cone can go deeper into the bevel on that fuel cone. And there's also a line down here, a banjo line. I think it's return fuel. That had to be taken off because the head was in the way. And there are 4 screws. These are the screws right there, the screws that hold on the top half of the pump onto the bottom of the pump. 2 are easy. There's one there, one there. One was a little more challenging. Right there, that hole there, you can see the shiny spot where it was. I had to remove, there was a protective cap on this nut. It looks like this threaded stud is a maximum throttle stop, and these mangled pieces of metal were the protective cap, the anti-tamper cap that I had to rip off because it was in the way of the of the Allen wrench. It's a 5mm Allen, so that was right there. I had to take that off. And then the worst one was, you can kind of see that little shiny round spot. It's not exactly in focus, but down in there is where the last screw was. And that was challenging because there's no straight way to get in there with an Allen wrench. And also, there you see that threaded hole and the threaded hole behind it. That is where the idle stop screw goes. And this end of the screw, you know, goes in like that. And that end of the screw is in the way of the head of that Allen screw. So that had to be taken out, and that was challenging. So I needed to use, let's see, where is it? I have so many piles of wrenches. I had to bend, here it is. I had to bend a wrench like this, and then get it in there like so, grab it with a pair of vice grips, and then just crank that lock nut loose. That lock nut there. And after a couple turns, the lock nut jammed up on the dirty threads, and I was able to just turn this entire screw out. And it does have a little flathead screw cut on there, so I was able to use a flathead screwdriver and back it out. And that was easy, but just very tedious. And that's about all that needs to be taken off to access the pump top. Another thing of note here, in there, this gear looking thing is the star wheel, and you see there's a little spring. There's a little spring in there that ratchets against it to keep it from rotating. This spring sits in there, and depending on how you turn this star wheel up or down, adjusts the preload on this spring, which all works in conjunction with the boost pressure and that diaphragm to adjust your fueling throughout your boost pressure range. That is something that I will also adjust when everything goes back together. Now, the next thing to do, I'm just going to pull the top of the pump off, and on the inside there's a little throttle lever attached to the throttle shaft here that attaches to the governor spring, and the governor spring stretches from here over to here somewhere on the bottom side of the pump. And I'll be replacing that governor spring with a 3200 RPM spring. And seems like the easiest way to do this is, as I pull the pump top off, I'll push this throttle lever down through the pump top. So that way I won't have the spring stretched between the pump top and the pump bottom. So let's give this a try. Alright, first time I've done this, so hopefully this goes okay for the camera. I'm going to get these screws out of the way. I kept these apart, but they are all the same length, so I can mix them up. Those screws held the pump top on. So a little bit of diesel fuel's coming out, but not a big deal. Okay, gently pop that off. The gasket will stick, I imagine. That fuel line is in the way. Gently get that out of the way. Now you see, there it is, but it's attached by the governor spring. I can feel it, so I'm going to push the throttle shaft. It's tough. There we go. Gentle little tap. So you see that just pushes through. Let's get another tool here. Okay, pop that out. There we go. So there's the pump top. I'm going to set this aside carefully somewhere where it's not going to fall. All right, and there's the bottom half of the pump. You can see here's the throttle shaft. There's the governor spring. This one says 386 on it, and I'll be replacing it with a 366 spring. I'm very happy that I'm looking at it and it doesn't say 366, because that means I took this apart for no reason. And so I can unhook it from here carefully. Set the throttle shaft aside. All right, I'm going to put the 3600 RPM spring in there. Here it is. There's a part number for you guys. And you see there's why they call it the 366 spring. Now you see what they call the top hat is what the spring is attached to. It's a little bit spring loaded, so you have to be careful. Okay, we got the bag open and ready to go. Actually, I'm going to take the spring out, put it somewhere safe. Actually, I'm just going to hold it. I'm going to see how it's spring loaded. Press it in. Pop the old spring off. Keep your hand on there, because without the spring, this little spring load thing, it can go flying off. Now I'll take my new spring. Flip it on there. That's all there is to it. So now on to the fuel pin. All right, I'm going to take the fuel pin off here. Keep in mind, everything on this pump is metric, but I've got just some adjustables. Let's see. All right, I think it's a 10 millimeter. Screw that off. Beside the nut. Break that loose, and there's a washer. And this would be the time to inspect your diaphragm and make sure there's no obvious rips or tears or anything. It looks pretty good to me. I considered buying a new one of these, but they're kind of expensive, and you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And also, this is relatively easy to to replace if you do have an issue with it later on. Keep in mind which side is top and bottom. I'll install the new one. On the washer and the nut. Tighten that up, and that's the easy part. That's all done. Alright, that about sums it up for how to remove the pump, or the pump top, change the governor spring, and change the fuel pin to an aftermarket fuel pin. As you can see, the pump is not together because I'm doing some other stuff to it, and if you're interested, check out my other videos on this pump. In my other videos, I talk about the fuel screw, and also I replace the O-ring and the pin itself for the slide pin, that is, and that is the pin that follows on the taper of the fuel pin. I needed to replace mine because my pin was badly rusted, and I also wanted to replace the O-ring. So if you're interested, check out my other videos. And thanks for watching my video. I hope this has helped some of you guys. As always, leave a comment, leave a suggestion. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And thank you for watching, and as always, come back for more.